to do a post-mortem of the 2020 elections. And after that, we came here again for a retreat of all our communication officers. And I attended again to look at the communications that should happen after the Supreme Court case and all that. And now here we are again on the third phase of the thank you tour. On the third phase, it's taking us to Eastern, Western, and Central.
Okay.
And now we're in Volta, and then tomorrow we'll be in OT.
Okay.
And then the last phase of the tour is, of course, the capital of the nation, that is Greater Accra. And so I want to say thank you to everybody here in Volta region. You did not disappoint us, as you've always done.
Have we not?
No, you didn't disappoint us. If you look at the votes we got from Volta region, I believe it went up by 113,000 votes. Despite all the intimidation that took place, despite the locking of the borders, despite bringing soldiers to intimidate our people during the registration and all that. If you look at the votes we got in the Volta region, it helped to increase us from where we were at about 4-point-something million to almost 6-point-something million.
Yeah.
And in Volta region alone, we got 113,000 additional votes over 2016.
Yeah.
And so you didn't disappoint us. There are 18 instances in the region. You gave us 17. And I know that even Hohoi would have won, but for the arm twisting that took place, as we sit here, the people of Santrofi, and have no representative in Parliament. And all these were carefully designed in order to take that constituency from us. And so we thank the people of Volta. You haven't disappointed me. I want to thank you for the support you've given me, and I'm sure that by God's grace, we live to fight another day.
Very well. Yes, you disputed the outcome of the 2020 polls. Yes. You went further to go to court. Yeah. Why that act?
We disputed it because a lot of things were not done the way they should have been done. If you look at what happened in the elections, we went to court. One, the declaration was wrong. The Electoral Commission, when she declared the results, which is the fundamental point of the case we took to the Supreme Court, she made a mistake in the numbers. The numbers didn't add up. Yeah. And she went and corrected it. And they corrected it again. They corrected it several times. This is the first time in the history of elections in Ghana that I know that the final election results have been corrected several times. Yeah. It didn't happen in Afrijan's time. It didn't happen in Charlotte Osei's time. This is the first electoral commissioner I know who has made mistakes. Why do you rush to declare results when you have not checked and cross-checked and cross-checked to make sure that the results are what you want? It means that you were in a hurry to declare, and so you declared and there were mistakes, and you corrected, and there were mistakes, and you corrected again. That's the first part of it. This is the first election we've had where authentic ballot papers are found with people, and ballot boxes are stuffed. This is the first election we've had where we have all gone to the printing houses. We've signed off on the ballot printing, because ballot printing houses are giving how many ballot papers they should print, and all our party agents go there and we sign off. After they have, we package the ballot papers and we dispatch them. And then somebody forgets something, he goes to a ballot, and this is not being carried by the media. I've said it several times. He goes to a printing house and millions of extra ballot papers have been printed. And on the day we catch people with authentic ballot papers, EC ballot papers. We go and we find that day the stamps behind the EC ballot paper with a yellow stamp, you find the ballot papers that people are carrying pre-printed, it has a yellow stamp behind it. And so this has been one of the worst elections we've had. There was ballot stuffing. We caught some people with ballot papers in their pockets, but there are others that we didn't catch who were able to stuff them in the ballot boxes. And so, yes, I cannot grade this election as the EC commissioner is saying as the best. Is the worst.
Well, I was just about asking that. She says it's one of the best.
It's the worst we've ever had. Worst we've ever had. We've never had an election where 8 people have been shot in the process and killed. You understand? And I mean, you say that is the best election. We've had elections over and over again. People we go through the process. We don't have people killed, you know, during an election process, you know, and so that's not acceptable. And then if you have an EC commissioner who, if you notice what happened at Awasi West Wogon, and people were shot and wounded, and I looked at her at the Emil Short Commission, And she said, they asked her about violence in the election, and she said they didn't see any violence. You know, so, I mean, she's got a mindset towards rigging the election for the EC. You have an EC commissioner who says that NDC is an existential threat to Ghana's democracy. And yet that EC commissioner is still on the commission and making decisions in respect of fair elections. It just shows the kind of EC we have. They should not go praising themselves. They've conducted one of the worst elections. And I'm saying that I don't have the power to remove them, and so it's likely that there will be the EC commissioners for the 2024. But they should use 2024 to redeem themselves. And
so that's where the bone of contention comes in again.
Yeah.
The same EC is going to lead charges as far as elections are concerned in the country into the 2024 polls.
Well, we're not going to give them the leeway they had in 2020. You understand? We're not going to countenance that we find extra ballot papers printed by anybody outside what we have all signed up to. They came and said it was a mistake. Let's ban them. And then we give them the benefit of the doubt and we ban them. But how many had been taken before the ones we banned were banned? You know, and then on the day of elections, we find those ballot papers all over, you know, some parts of the country. Even after the elections, you saw the video.
Yeah.
Some people went and dumped the extra ballot papers. How did that happen? One would have thought that the EC would be interested in investigating and finding out where those ballot papers came from. We've heard nothing. They should have gone to take the ballot papers that were dumped and try and find out where did these come from. No investigation, nothing, because they had achieved the goal that they wanted. Because the ballot papers that they wanted had been stuffed into the boxes.
Anyway, let's quickly move on and talk about your party. Is the party united?
Yes, our party is united.
How strong and formidable is the front?
Our party's front is strong, it's formidable, it's working, you know, towards 2024. We started the reorganization. As soon as we finished the Supreme Court case, we started to work on reorganization. The reorganization started here in Ho. Like I told you, the first retreat we held was here, in this very hotel, Volta Serene. All our people came from the various regions, and then we started the process of, you know, post-mortem. What went right in the elections? What went wrong? Why did you lose this seat? How come we won this seat? And we've built on those reports. After that, we asked them to go back and synthesize their regional reports. And all the regions have done is left with 2 regions, Ashanti and Eastern. And they should be done by end of October, early November. And then once they do that, it will prepare us for what we call the Special Delegates Conference. And based on that, we'll bring all those reports together and then use it to start the process of reorganization. The process of reorganization will start next year with branch elections, constituency elections, regional and national. And we're preparing everything for that event.
Great. So just a quick one on that one. I think last week or latter part of last week, there was this proposal made by some group of people in the NDC that perhaps there is going to be a change in the elections of party executives, where the branch executives might be elected at the latter part of the whole election processes. Are you aware of that, and what can you say about that?
There are various proposals coming, but we will decide on what the proposals will be. But it will be strange to me that you do the branches at the end of the whole process, because the branches are the roots of the tree. And so if you don't have roots that firmly anchor the tree, then you cannot build the superstructure. I haven't seen that proposal, but I've heard a few suggestions come up, because they say that often when the branches are done first, people influence the branch elections in order to win the constituency. No, but still, the point is, we must not do all the branch elections at once like we do. Okay. We must do it segment by segment. And we must get strong people from the national, our former ministers, everybody to go. If we're doing 2 regions like Volta and OT, we should get our people to go to Volta and OT and supervise the branch elections there to make sure that at every polling station we have the 9 members elected. Before we will give a date and say between this time and this time, all regions should have held their branch elections. Okay. And so everybody will be holding it at different times, and then you don't have people supervising exactly what's happening. And so it's been said that constituency executives take advantage. They go to a branch and then they just write names of people who are favorable to them. No. let's do Volta and OT. The way we've done this, thank you to, let's phase out the branch elections. And so if we're doing 3 regions, we will let everybody leave Accra, all the national executives, all our ex-ministers, everybody, and we'll assign everybody to constituencies to supervise and make sure that the branch elections are held, and that in every polling station we have the 9 members who are duly elected as the branch executives. And then when we've done that, and we agree on what the names are, then we can go to the constituency.
Very well.
Luckily this time we have a lot more time, and so let's not rush it. Let's take our time and make sure that in every of the 30-something thousand polling stations, we have 9 members who are NDC people, loyal, committed, dedicated to stand in for the party.
You have mentioned some sort of reorganization by the party just after the elections. You have also spoken about reforms. What exactly are these reforms intended to achieve?
Reorganization has to do with the party, and like I said, we held retreats here in order to do a post-mortem of what happened, and it went quite well. Every region presented a report, and after that we asked them to go back and synthesize their reports so that we can do a special delegates conference at the end of it and look at all the reports so that they will form the strategy for the election going forward. But that's a separate issue. There's another issue that has to do with electoral reforms. That is not to do with the party. It's to do with the EC.
Okay.
Yeah, we set up a committee to come up with proposed electoral reforms. Because after every election, you need to look at what went well and what went wrong, and then see how you can bring in improvements so that everybody is happy with the results of the election. And so we came up with proposals which were presented to the Electoral Commission. But aside from that, we've also done some activation. We've met religious groups, we've met the Muslim groups, we've met the traditional authorities, we've met various groups and tried to explain to them why we think that if these proposals are carried out, it will lead to a better electoral outcome in Ghana than we have seen in the past. And so that's also a different issue which we are dealing with.
Your Excellency, let me also ask, is there hope for the NDC in 2024?
Why not? I mean, for a party that went from 4-point-something million votes to 6-point-something million, almost 6.3 million, how can you say there's no hope? There definitely is hope. But for a lot of scheming that took place, the NDC would have won the 2020 elections. I do believe that we did win, but a lot of things went untoward. And so even though power didn't come into our hands, it doesn't mean that, you know, we do not have the prospects of winning. I mean, we won the majority in Parliament, but you saw what happened on the day. In many of the collation centers, they injected soldiers in there and forced the electoral officers to pronounce results that were not real. If you take the case of Seshiri also, the polling station where I won the presidential, that polling station ballot box for the parliamentary was asked to be brought to the regional center, regional collation center, instead of the district collation center. That last ballot box, and on the way it got missing. And based on that, they declared the MPP the winners in Seshiri also. I mean, those are some of the things that happened.
Could I have changed the narrative?
It would have changed the narrative in Senate West. Luckily, a judge sorted that out. When they were losing, they picked a ballot box and ran away with it. I mean, what kind of democracy is this? I was looking at something this morning. Municipal Chief Executive, Municipal Chief Executive, Cape Coast, and they said 77 people votes out of 63. People who there were assembled were 63. And then somebody was saying that some people took some of the ballot papers and ran away with them. I mean, what kind of democracy is MPP, you know, fostering in this country? And when you listen to people like Lord Comey and things, it's about power. To me, it's not about the welfare of the people. It's not about the will of the people. He says if you get power, you shouldn't hand it over to anybody. What do you mean by that? It's a sovereign will of the people who elect you to serve. You know, but when arrogance of power sets in, then you hear people speak so carelessly and recklessly. I think it's most unfortunate.
Yes, do you feel power is being abused?
You say?
Do you feel power is being abused?
No, certainly. I mean, if you listen to some of them, the arrogance of power has gotten to them. And he was quoting the president. He said the president said he is going to hand over to an MPP president. He won't hand over. He will hand over to an MPP president. It's not your will. It is God's will and the will of the Ghanaian people. Whoever wins the election, you must hand over. Kufuor handed over to Mills.
Yeah.
I handed over to you, Nana Akufo-Addo. I could have made my mind that I wanted to hand over to an NDC, but it is the will of the people. If the people decide, you must agree. And the point is, I don't know where he's coming from, but I mean, statements like this are reckless. And I think that when they make them, the president is happy with them, and so he pats them on the back. That's what encourages them. Look at what happened in Ayawaso West Wuogon. And a whole deputy general secretary of their party says, oh, Ayawaso West Wuogon was a dress rehearsal. Yeah. And the dress rehearsal turned through 8 people dying because of impunity. You know, you just fire and kill people, you know, and then after that, Ejura, look at what happened. And all these things, these people get away with it. All these mass people in all those kinds of uniforms and clothes and things, they don't get punished for what they do. And so where will the next incident be? And won't they pull the triggers again? Because they are not being punished for what they do. And so impunity sets in. And that's what's happening. And so it's unfortunate that comments like that are made, but they reflect the comments of the leader. When you say all die be die, then you have people like Lord Comey come and say reckless things like this, you know. We have a constitution. What he said was against our constitution. We'll hand over power. How can you not hand over power?
Yes, some also say you mentioned do or die.
Do or die is an English idiom, and I'm tired of explaining it. Just go take your dictionary. Whoever doesn't understand it,
should read
take your dictionary and go and read your dictionary. It's there. Do or die. It's explained.
Now, Your Excellency, let me also ask. You presented the People's Manifesto to Ghanaians ahead of the 2020 polls.
Yes.
You eventually lost the elections.
Yeah.
Are you going to present the same manifesto, or you're having a review of that manifesto?
We'll have a review based on the reality. Ghana continues to change. We presented a manifesto based off of our assessment of what the current state of the economy in Ghana is. In 2024, we will be in a different place, because if you look at the debt and all that, you understand, then if you look at the fiscal space that has been squeezed and all that, you might need to do some corrective measures before you're able to roll out your program. So we came out with quite an expansive program. We had the 1 million jobs plan. We had the $10 billion big push. But if you look at the rate at which this government is borrowing, then it means that the debt overhang is going to be serious. Right now we're about 80% of GDP in debt. And every day they are borrowing more. They have no solution to the borrowing, because once they take total government revenue, it pays for wages and salaries and interest on debt payments. Every other thing they have to do, Agenda 111, every other thing they have to do, goods and services, capital, is borrowed. And so what will be the situation by 2024? We need to project. And based on that, it will inform what changes will be changes we have to make.
Very well. Your Excellency, we still have people in the region, here in the Volta region, who feel that the NDC pride itself here as the World Bank, yet they've not seen much of developmental projects. Would you agree to that? And if yes, why? If no, what are we to expect from perhaps the next or the future NDC government?
I don't agree with that. No, it's a propaganda MPP have pushed in the Volta region. Everything in this region, from electricity to water to educational facilities to health facilities to road facilities, has been done under NDC government. Show me anything MPP has done during their tenure in this region. Show me. No, you're interviewing me. I'm asking. There's nothing.
I might find it difficult myself, because I'm still surfing.
There's nothing they have done. I have a list here, and this is just the 4 years when I was president. I'm not talking about district assembly projects. I'm not talking about KVIPs. I'm not talking about schools under trees. I'm not talking about small clinics and so on and so on. I'm talking about major governmental projects. You understand? More than 2,000 communities in the Volta region were electrified under NDC's administration. Electricity for most of this region was brought here by NDC, from Rawlings to Atamils to me. Water systems, just name all water systems and see which one the MPP have done. And I have a list here. Look at the education infrastructure. Just the community day schools. Out of the community day schools that we started, the first batch that we started, 10 of them were, 7 of them were in the Volta region, but 7 of them, because if you add OT, it used to be one region, Volta and OT. So if you separate OT, then 7 were in Volta region. And this is the Volo Community Day SHS, Agave Community Day SHS. It has been completed, but this government has refused to use it. Abenofeme Community Day SHS, that's in Akachi South. Aflao Community Day HSS in senior high school. Ziope Community SHS. Adaklu Community Day SHS. And Tongo Community Day SHS. These are the new community day schools that we're introducing, taking about 1,000 to 1,500 students per school. So if you take 7,000, 7 times 1,500, you can imagine the number of additional secondary school places would have created. And apart from that, every senior high school existing in the region was getting dormitory blocks, administration blocks, dining halls. All those projects in those senior high schools that we're building have currently come to a standstill. Some we completed, some we didn't complete. But as of now, you go to many of our schools in Volta region, since MPP came into office, all those projects have come to a standstill. When we came into office, Volta region had no public university. None. Not one. No public university. Professor Mills promised that he will build a public university in every region. At that time, we had 10 regions. And so Professor Mills envisioned and started and found the funding for the University of Health and Allied Sciences. I was his vice president. We worked on it together. Unfortunately, President Mills passed away. And I took it up. I came to Volta region and I said, look, we'll continue this project and we'll make sure that we complete UHAS. I remember when we started, the funding hadn't come in yet. One paper went and took a picture of a jungle, the site where currently UHAS is, and showed lizards and snakes and things, and said, this is Professor Mills' university. You remember that?
I remember.
Today, go to UHAS and see. UHAS is a recognized brand in higher education in Ghana for Professor Mills' vision. I came and continued, and we finished it. One of them came here, and they gave Professor Mills a posthumous honor. Professor Mills came and received it on his behalf. I was there with her. And so that, you understand, formerly tertiary education students in Volta region had university or tech or Legon. We didn't have our own university here that we could go to. Today we have it. But aside from that, the policy of technical universities, today we have whole technical university. And the grandmother, the midwife of the technical universities is sitting here, so Nana Jane. And so aside from UHAS, we have whole technical university. Today it is training graduates, who are coming out and will be a benefit to this society. Aside from that, in terms of healthcare, we upgraded whole hospital into a teaching hospital. And so today we have a teaching hospital in Ho. It is due to us. Construction of the K2 North Municipal Hospital in Weta. It's a brand new hospital. We started it before we left office, and it has been completed now. And it's not only Weta, there were a couple of other areas where we decided to site those hospitals. We have expansion of Akachi South District Hospital with bungalows for administrative staff, administration block, a mortuary, male ward, female ward, and theater. All those are part. Then when we come to road transport, we have the Akachi bypass to Aflao, Asphalt Old Valley. You know that road? You remember how that road used to be?
Terrible.
Today, if you pass on it, the Akachi bypass is completely asphalted, very beautifully laid out. We have the Akachi to Ziope Road, Have to Pando Road. You remember Have Pando? Vegolokwati to Fodome Roads, Pando Tafi to Lugba Roads, Kome Road within the Aglon constituency. We did 20 kilometers of whole township roads. And so today, if you go to whole township and you see that the market area and all those places have asphalt overlay, it was during the NDC time we did it. We did a drop onto Fojoku Road, Bator Dove to Sogakope Road. Then within the Anglo constituency, that is the Keta Sea Defense and all the other, you remember we continued the sea defense. It was eating up Anyangwi. We extended that sea defense there, and we left. We are supposed to continue it to the beginning of the estuary with So today the erosion is on that other side, and our intention was to continue that sea defense. It's been abandoned. But from where we got to Anyawi, today if you go, the coast is looking good. The sand is there. The what do you call it? The buildings that were being eroded today are stabilized, on the coast of that place. Aside from that, we commenced work on the sea defense wall at Agaveji. We did asphalt overlay in 4 municipal capitals, Hohoi, Kwando, Ho, and Aflao. So today if you go to Hohoi and you see some of the roads are asphalted and things, it was in our time we did it. We came and met it started in Kufuor's time, but we came and completed it. That is the Hofume Road. You remember the Hofume Road? Today if you go on the Hofume Road, it's looking good.
It takes you less than an hour to travel from Ho to Hohoi.
Yes. Then we awarded portions of the Eastern Corridor, that is Asikuma Junction to Have, and then Have to Hohoi. And we also awarded Jasikan to Hohoi to Rolida. This government came and said they should stop the work. And they kept the work standing for almost 3 years.
They told us they were reviewing.
They said they were reviewing. And then the minister himself said, we finished the review, there's nothing wrong with it. So we're asking them to go back to site. That road would have been long finished by now. But it's now that it's being worked on. The contract was awarded by us in our time. And so it's costing us more to do that road today than if the contractor had been asked to continue. Then we did the famous Ho Airport. Recently, did a test flight here. I myself came on a flight with Pashine, to do a program here, and I continued to Kumasi. I flew from Ho Airport to Kumasi Airport for the first time in the history of Ghana. That airport is viable. I mean, if you look at the time you spend traveling from Accra to Ho, I mean, there are many people who in 25 minutes would prefer to catch a flight here and do whatever they're doing and catch a flight back in the evening or at the weekends or something. That's how routes are developed. Routes are developed based on need, and there's a need. Every weekend, if you look at the traffic coming to Volta region, I mean, it's unconscionable. And yet you can fly in for a funeral or a function, a festival or something, let your driver meet you here, or you can hire a vehicle here, do whatever you're doing, get a friend to pick you up, you attend the funeral, you do whatever you're doing, he drops you at the airport, and then you fly back. Or you sleep, the next day you catch the flight back. Or you can bring passengers from Accra to Ho, and there will be passengers who are going to Kumasi, and they have to drive all the way round to Kumasi. Imagine the length of time. So you drop your Kumasi passengers, you drop your Ho passengers, pick passengers coming from Kumasi, going to from Ho, going to Kumasi, and then you take them to Kumasi. So if somebody is going to Kumasi from Hohoi, he will drive to Ho, pick the flight, and go. You develop routes, and that's why we built that airport. A day will come, I probably will not be here, but you and your children will be here, and you will be catching a flight from Ho to Tamale, or Ho to Sunyani, or Ho to Kumasi, or Ho to Takrade. If you want to go to Takrade from Ho and you had a flight to take you directly to Takrade, would you prefer that, or you would want to drive through Accra traffic and all that to get to Takrade?
I prefer a flight.
Yeah, so the airport is strategic and it will serve its purpose.
Very well.
Water expansion, Pando water system. Today, Pando has more water than it did before because we expanded the Pando water system. Then we did the 5 districts water project at Dume. We finished the water production part. It was left to the distribution. And so we're working on a facility to distribute it all the way to Adaklu and Ziope, Agotime Ziope and others when we left office. Since then, this government hasn't really continued with that project. Then there are other things like, I mean, these ones, Office Complex of National Communications Authority. Then we established a naval base at South Tong, Agota. There was no naval presence in the Volta region, and so we brought the naval training school and the naval base to Agota. We constructed the Angloga shopping sector. We did the whole central market. Today, the whole central market that we have today is, as a result of what NDC did. And then we had ICT centers across the region. Almost every district got an ICT center. And then for the new districts, we gave them new district assembly buildings. And so I can mention so many things that we have done. The Eastern Corridor Road project, which will make Volta region a major transit, point for goods and services coming from the north to the south. We did the northern portions of it coming into the Volta region. So there are many things that we have done, and it's in Tree language. I don't know how you say it in Ewe. It says that the liar is the one who says, "So my witness is abroad."
But let me ask this question, quick one.
If people come here and say they've done more than us, let them come with this list that I'll leave with you.
I'll be grateful.
And let them come and tell us what they have done. They should say blow by blow what they have done. Over these last 5 years, what is it in Volta region that you see that has been done?
Your Excellency, a quick one. How do you feel when you see some of these projects that you have initiated, you have started, being stalled? For instance, my people in the southern part of the region, their homes are being eaten by the sea. You started a sea defense project, it has been stalled. Till now, nothing has been done about that. Yeah. The last time I interviewed the one member on the Health Committee of Parliament, Honorable Charles Agbefe, he shared some videos with me, some health facilities that have been stalled as well, abandoned. How do you feel? Now, in addition to that, what is the next NDC government thinking of these projects that have been abandoned? Will you continue to complete them and leave what they have also started?
I've been asked this question before, and I said that is one of the most unfortunate things about Nana Akufo-Addo and his government, because it is in his government that we see this magnitude of abandoned projects. When Rawlings handed over to Kufuor, all people who were working on contracts were asked to continue, and the government kept paying them until they finished. Some were finished. If some have been abandoned, it was not deliberately, or either the contractor was not up to the scratch and government needs to change a new contractor or something. Yeah, but contracts were not terminated because a new government had come. When Professor Mills took over from Kufuor, I was his vice president. As far as I know, we kept paying contractors, even for contracts that were awarded under Kufuor's time, to continue working until they finished. The only occasion in which a contract would have been stalled would have been the contractor's incapacity to continue, and then even then it will be terminated and given to another contractor to continue. The only time that I've seen a multitude of abandoned projects, major national projects, is under Nana Akufo-Addo's administration. And when I talk about all these community day schools and hospitals and health facilities, it's just a deliberate policy to abandon the projects, because then the credit goes to the past government. But the point I make is, the money we use for these projects is not my money. It didn't come out of my pocket. It didn't come out of Ebisata, may God rest his soul, my vice president's pocket. It didn't come out of any of my ministers' pockets. All the community day schools were executed. Were being executed by World Bank and Get Fund projects. What this government came and did was, because the World Bank projects were projects that government and the World Bank had signed agreements for and the money had been provided, they continued those projects, or they took them from some contractors because they thought they were NDC contractors and gave them to their contractors to continue. But all the GOG ones came to a halt. And the unfortunate thing is, there are some that are finished, completed, and yet they won't populate them with children. I know one where furniture, everything was in there, and they won't put children in and make it a functioning SHS. And yet look at the problem we're having with double track. Look at the problem we're having with congestion in the existing schools. And that was the reason why we started these, because the future of free SHS does not lie in a boarding system. You must peel off some of the weight into schools that are within communities. I mean, if I'm in Medina and I live at home and my school is within a walking distance, I won't go and take admission in a school, a boarding school, when I can stay at home and go to school every day. So we said, look, let's put these community day schools so that it will peel off some of the pressure on the existing SHS. We wanted to build 200 of them, and I'm sure that if we had built 200 of them, the current gold track and all that was, even if we didn't build 200, what we had built and reached an appreciable level, at least almost 80 of them, each of them can take more than 1,000 students. And so you're talking about more than 80-something thousand, pupils that you can peel out of the existing schools. We probably will not have the double track that we currently have. But this government is not interested. It's just fortunate that we finished about almost 50 of them. And we commissioned them before we left office. And we populated them with children. So those schools are working today. Ekunfi Senior High School, which is named after Atta Mills. I mean, several of them have gone, and their children there studying and going to school. But all the rest that we left at different stages of completion have been abandoned. But that's only education. There's also health.
Yeah.
There are many hospitals that we're building that this government has abandoned. Some of them will reach a certain stage of completion. Recently, the Health Committee of Parliament went to inspect the second military hospital, which we put in Ashanti. And we did it based on that the first one was in Accra, 37, built by the Europeans. There was no other military hospital. And we said, okay, let's put another one in the middle of the country. This is in the south. And so we decided on Afari, and we got the land. Before I left office, that hospital was almost 90% complete. Oxygen cylinders, air conditioners, everything had been brought to site. Today, if you go and look at the place, it's infested with rats and weeds and snakes and all that. Why would we do this to ourselves? And that is only then. There's also roads. Many road projects. I mentioned to you several road projects. There are many that we gave on contract. Work was ongoing, and then the new government comes and says stop work. And up till today, 4 or 5 years on, contractors who were working on those projects have not been paid. We extended the road, Cocoa Roads project to Volta region, because a lot of people didn't even know that Volta region produces cocoa. But I said Volta region produces cocoa almost 10,000 tons a year. And we started the process of increasing Volta region's contribution to cocoa. And so we came and set up nurseries. So if you go to northern Volta, Hohoi, towards Oti, we had young cocoa farmers that we recruited, and we're giving them seedlings to plant cocoa farms so that they could also make money from cocoa. And so we started improving the roads in those areas under the Cocoa Roads Improvement Project. Today, this government has abandoned all that. I don't know if the cocoa nurseries are still there, and whether they're still promoting the youth in cocoa sector or anything. So there's a lot that we did in Volta region, but their propaganda is that you always vote for him. What has he done for you? But because we don't take our time, and I shouldn't come and say this, I mean, these are things that our MPs and everybody should be able to go down to our people and say, look, everything you have here, NDC did for you. But it always takes me to come and, deflate the MPP propaganda. But they'll come and say, look at you, what do you have? What have they done for you? But we've done a lot for the Volta region. And we will still do a lot for the Volta region because we know the Volta region has always stood with us. And we don't take their support for granted.
Your Excellency, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and have more discussions on the way forward. If you're just tuning in here live on Global FM 105.1 megahertz, of course, you are also watching us live on TV XYZ. You can also listen to us on Swiss FM based here in Oho, as well as Kingdom FM in Oho, Tosh FM, Hills FM in Adaklu, Stella Radio, Jubilee Radio far away in Keta. We also want to say thanks to Freedom FM, Shine FM, Kaliao FM, Jigori FM, Danigba Radio, Agbo FM, Holy FM, as well as Akpini Radio, Lukusi Radio, as well as Lonlonyo FM, Dela Radio, as well as Amenveve Radio. We say thank you so much. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we still have the conversation with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Many have proclaimed him to be the we wait to see. talk about education quickly, most especially on the implementation of the free senior high school. This morning we heard some reports the president has touted some of his flagship programs to be the best and bearing fruit. How will you describe the current situation that we have faced in our various senior high schools?
You see, when you perform in anything, you cannot be the one who said the questions, graded them, and then you give yourself accolades. It is up to the people that you are serving to tell you whether you're doing well or not. If you start by saying that you're doing so well, it means you're not even open to anybody else's views. What are the students saying? What are the parents saying? What is the community saying? What is becoming of the students? How come they write exams? And then they can accuse their teachers of not allowing them to cheat. Can you imagine? If you had a child behaving this way, or a younger brother, how would you feel? So you see, there are many things. You can just cover everything and say, you are the best. You are saying so. Do others say so? Do you respect other people's views? So I'll leave that there.
Could we have done better?
Of course we could have. Of course we could have. And that was why we started with the progressively free. What does it mean? We did an analysis and came up with what is it that is stopping children from accessing, and more importantly, what is it that is stopping them from excelling? Because we started from the premise that every child can learn, every child can do well. Maybe you are teaching the child in a way that the child doesn't respond. It doesn't mean that the child is not bright. So much as we were looking at the physical things, we're also looking at the intangibles. The physicals include the E-blocks that my boss has talked about. We have a youthful population, we have a high birth rate. As we sit here, we ought to predict in 10 years' time, if the birth rate is consistent, how many children we should expect in the secondary school. And you need to begin to plan now. We were told that the buildings were too big, and they were too far away. Far away from where? These are pieces of land we got. In order to ensure that the implementation is done properly, you also need to do a profile of the population, income levels, and so many things, in order to know what strategy do you need to put in place to ensure that you are not shortchanging the youth. And if you shortchange the youth, you are shortchanging the country, because this is where you are preparing the human resource, which is the most important resource anybody can have. So definitely, it ought to have been planned properly. That was also why we expanded access to the colleges of education. If you're going to have so many children, where are the teachers? Even the current teachers, what problems do they have? How do we ensure that the new teachers being rolled out will avoid some of the problems in the system? So much that needs to be done. So if you just don't do anything, none of these and more, and you say, put billboards everywhere, welcome free SHS, that's what you get. And we all know the issues, we all know the problems. And my hope is that it will be taken more seriously than it has been. And I want to add something to my youth. Generally, I think His Excellency has answered well when we all fall for the propaganda that NDC has done nothing for the Volta region. It begs the question that you have a better record, so we can compare records. So let the person also come with a better record that they have. And we all know that it's the NDC that gives promise to the youth. Look at how old some of the ministers were when we recruited them. And the kind of insult we got in this country, as if you can't train people to become what they can be, which is what education is all about. And now you mention their names, and we know how far they have gone. Compare with the others. I don't know what record they have. And a lot also believe that, it's educated people who join MPP, and therefore, when they are not educated, what is education? It's many, many, many things. And in any way, even if we have to stay with formal education, if truly the NPP cares about education, they should be the ones building the universities. They should be the ones converting the polytechnics to technical universities. They should be the one building the E-blocks. They should be the one building the medical schools. They should be the ones expanding access to law school, not for children to be demonstrating in the streets that they want to learn. I think every parent should be very happy if their child comes and says, I want to learn, more than I want to cause trouble. Yeah. So they don't do any of these. And I throw a challenge to the youth. If you didn't have the schools you have, if you didn't have the secondary schools, if you didn't have the teachers or the books, today you have a government that is investing in past questions.
Yeah.
How about the textbook? What is the role of the Book Development Council? And so on. And that is not even up for discussion. When we talk about the free SH, for example, we are worried about where they will sleep and what they will eat, which is fundamental. Yeah. Completely important. But you see, that's not the main reason we send children to school. Parents send them there to go and learn. How many of us are worried about the time they spend in the labs? How many of us are worried about the quality of science labs, of science teachers, of the technical staff, of math teachers? We want to talk about STEM. Where are we at now? What are the percentages? It's not even up for discussion. But we should be interested. Because you see, we have so much raw material and so on. And I remember when I joined His Excellency in the ministry, and every state of the nation of the address he gave, he'll talk about adding value. And I remember the first time I attended the speech delivery, and I called my staff, top staff, and asked them, first of all, let's extract from this whole speech the area that has to do with education specifically. Even though we know education intersects with the economy, with health, with everything else. But let's start with us. So this whole thing about adding value, what should that mean for us? What should we mean for curriculum review? So how do we work with those in economy? How do we work with those in health? Even roads, agriculture, everywhere, to ensure that we're also raising our students to be able to add this value. You see, so let nobody come in here and tell us that they are educated.
Very well.
Which schools did they go to and how many have they built since they came? So that is the message I want to give to my youth. I know that in the Volta region you have 7 colleges of education. I don't know how many they built.
None.
Yes, but they see you are the journalist. Please help us. Okay, so when you get, all the things that His Excellency has spoken about, I'm sure they are not new to you. And
I think most of this has been captured in the People's Manifesto.
It's not about the People's Manifesto. That is important. But I also want to hear sometimes discussions on radio stations about these things.
Very well.
Okay, because that is why the radio stations are
that's a task for us to do.
So please, I want you to help us.
I want to ask a quick question as well. Quite recently, we've heard about the impasse between UTAG and then the government. The issue again about research allowances, support for our lecturers.
Listen, this one we need a long time. So let me just sum it up. University exists to do research. That is all. The teaching is a very small part of our job as a university. We should be finding the solutions to the problems that society faces. That is why government puts money into universities. So, and we also need the means to make that happen. Remember, during our time, we proposed that, listen, instead of this book and research allowance that we share, and nobody is able to do much because the money is so small, a lot of us have been able to progress, not on that money, because it wouldn't have taken us anywhere. And we know how we struggled, and we thought, let's save the younger generation from that kind of struggle. Listen, many people have retired as lecturers or senior lecturers. Well, they could have become full professors because they don't have access to research. So we propose that let us rather set up a national research fund. If we decide today that our problem is water, or our problem is sanitation, or our problem is health, COVID, every research institution ought to be doing something about it. Why are we still importing vaccines? These are some of the things that universities properly defined should do. And we started during our time under His Excellency JM. There was a World Bank facility for centers of excellence. I remember working with the groups from KNUST and from Legon in my office, sometimes late into the night, to see how we could refine the proposal and put ourselves in a strong place to get it. Thank God we got 3. And I just want to talk about one, which is the Center for Cell Biology and Infectious Pathogens. at the University of Ghana. Without that, you see, we were boasting, no, Ghana was doing well with COVID. We are doing sequencing. Who set up that lab? It was JM who set that lab, because he understood the importance of research. And that was when we had been threatened by Ebola. Now we are not threatened by COVID. We are living with it. Tell me what value has been added to that. So you see, the research is very important. As I said, if you decide sanitation is a problem, let them help us. And the young people, they are vaccinating. And maybe that is why some of us enjoyed being at it. They will come up with a solution. Let them do their long essays and so on. And you sit back and synthesize them. You get solutions.
Well,
okay.
Let me get back to This is quite a lengthy one. It's quite broad. Should I say bigger than ever? It's unemployment. Excellency, the issue about rural-urban migration is high here in the Volta region. My people in the southern part who are into shallot farming, they seem not to get it right, especially after farming and then it's time to harvest. The produce gets stuck on the farm due to poor road network. That I feel to a large extent, if it is taken good care of, we'll have more jobs in that area for the youth. My people in Ziopi who are into tomatoes farming are crying every now and then. My people in Akofu who are into okra farming are always crying because the produce gets stuck on the farm. That can actually go a long way to get them some jobs instead of moving from Ho or wherever to Accra. And what can we do in the next future when NDC wins power?
Well, you can tell through the last population census results that have just been published what is happening. The young people are, for lack of opportunities, are migrating to the major centers. So Greater Accra and Greater Accra just overtook Ashanti as the greatest population area, and Ashanti is second. Now if you look at the spread of business and industry, Greater Accra is first and Ashanti is second. You understand? So it means that people are coming and seeking opportunities in these areas. A lot of those who are coming, and that's why she said that, what value are we adding? You understand? A lot of those who are coming are graduates from SHS, from tertiary education. They come out and there are not enough jobs being generated in the private sector for them to be able to access. So they believe that if they move to the centers of business, they'll be able to get jobs either in the private sector or in the public sector. But the point is, what are we training these young people in? We're pushing all the children into free SHS. We've ignored technical education and secondary technical education, because these are areas where if the children go, they can acquire skills that would make them able to set up their own businesses or be able to get businesses in the world of work. Right now, if you come out of SHS and you did business or you did arts or you did something, the chances of you getting a job are very slim. If you go to university and you do the humanities, the chances of you getting a job are very slim. Now, the whole of the public sector is 700,000 people. You understand? Ghana's population is 30-point-something million. Every year, out of senior, tertiary education, you have almost 100,000 young people qualifying. How many can be employed in the government sector? And that is why in our manifesto, we said we need to make a shift and create a situation where a lot of our young people are going more into technical education. Because if you look at what business and industry are looking for, they're not looking for humanities. They're looking for people who have technical education. They're looking for excavator operators. They're looking for crane operators. They're looking for civil engineers. They're looking for steel benders. They're looking for those kinds of people. But yet most of our children are going through the secondary grammar education and coming out, and they can't find a job because they don't have the skills to be able to enter the world of work. And that's why if you look in our manifesto, we said we must do a pivot. You understand? It's not that you brought free SHS and you produce hundreds of thousands of young people from free SHS, But what skills did you give them coming out of free SHS so that if they cannot find work, they can do something for themselves? What skills are you giving them in entrepreneurship so that they can do work for themselves? But best of all, and you were giving the example of shallot farming and all that, the problem is there's no processing. And that's why if you look in the NDC manifesto, we say we're going into agro-processing in a major way. We're going to give young people entrepreneurial skills to set up agro-processing facilities. When they grow the cassava, you can only eat it as agbelima or something. Fine, eat your agbelima. But there's excess cassava. There's more cassava than the people can produce. You can create that into cassava chips. You can create it into cassava starch. Today, China is buying more cassava starch and cassava chips worth almost $3 billion a year. If even 100 million or 200 million of that was coming into Ghana, imagine how it would help the cassava farmers here. You know, there's palm oil. We're importing more than 400,000 metric tons of palm oil. Meanwhile, the palm oil seed was taken from West Africa to Malaysia. And yet all the oil we're using to fry our fish and everything is coming from Malaysia. And we're not producing enough. I mean, if you go to COP and others, we have land where we can produce, you know, palm oil and processed palm oil. And so that's what brings that our manifesto in. We said that, look, we must create the 1 million jobs plan. And the 1 million jobs plan includes entrepreneurial skills for young people and investing money in areas where we can create additional jobs, not in the public sector, but in the private sector. And then we also said we must invest another $10 billion in social and economic infrastructure. The economic infrastructure includes money for agro-processing in all the areas of the country. You can take the pepper growers along the coast. If you process that pepper, the chili, you can export it and make money. There's flower growing. There are so many things that our young people can do if we train and empower them. And that's what our manifesto was meant to do. Unfortunately, we didn't win. Last time I was talking, I said, if Nanado would just be humble and take our manifesto and look in it, you'll find a lot of solutions to the situation we're facing currently. And we won't mind if he starts implementing them even before we come.
Two things for us to wind up with. I understand we are out of time, we have to run quickly. But two things. One has to do with tourism in the region. Gradually, the Volta region is being noted for its tourist sites. You can mention the waterfall in Lobatuta, known as the Akum waterfall, the several caves in Lobatuta. You can mention the Avedakpa crocodile pond as well. These are some new sites that have been discovered quite recently. What is the next NDC government going to do, most especially in that field? The second one is, Your Excellency, I'm a sports person. And I remember the late Professor Neil promised us a stadium, a sports stadium, which I understand so well that they started. I mean, land was acquired, but that project never materialized. We saw something they doing at Adaku, known as the Youth Resource Center. The current sports stadium we can boast of is dilapidated. If JM wins power in 2024, heading into 2025, is there a promise for us that we will have a sports stadium?
Yeah. It's only those who don't know the Volta region well, who don't know that it's a tourist destination. The vegetation and the ambience of the Volta region is so friendly to ecotourism. And so if I have traveled the length and breadth of this region, I've been all the way to Afajato. I've climbed up the mountain. I didn't get to the top anyway, but I got to the community as close to the top as possible. And the fresh air, the beautiful vegetation, you know, there are so many things in the Volta region. There are two problems. One, tourist reception facilities, and two, road network. I mean, nobody wants to struggle and go through potholes, bang, 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 and then go and reach a place and enjoy it for just a few hours, and then you have to go back. If the road network is good and they can reach there early enough, spend more time there, and then come back, that would be an advantage. And that's why the road network was one of our priorities. And that is why I added Volta region to the Cocoa Roads Improvement Project. Because if you go to up towards Afajato and all those areas, there was cocoa growing there. and we were trying to install cocoa growing in those areas and use the money from cocoa to improve the roads. Even in the southern parts, we're using, because we said every region that grows cocoa is entitled to Cocoa Roads Improvement Project. And so we're using that to improve a lot of the roads. And that would have led to a lot of these sites. I mean, the waterfalls are beautiful. People like to come and spend time just watching the water and all that. And so if you look in our manifesto for 2020, you know, identifying Volta region as one of the potential tourist destinations, you know, included improving the roads and improving the tourist reception facilities. When you go and watch and you're hungry, you want to be able to have some small, nice restaurant. That one will involve the private sector, and then you go have a meal there or something like that. And so it is a priority for us in terms of tourism, because it will create jobs. A lot of our young people can become tourist guides and things like that. And apart from that, if tourists come and they spend in the local economy, then the local economy also grows. Because if they eat at a restaurant or they come and sleep in Volta Serene Hotel, it all adds to the growth of the local economy. But to talk about sports, in Professor Mills's time, he initiated he was working both on the Cape Coast Stadium and also Volta Region Stadium. The Chinese gave us money for the Cape Coast Stadium. Land was identified here. If you look in our 2020 manifesto, we said that the remaining regions that do not have sports stadia will be provided with sports stadia. And so Volta region was one of the priorities. But it was meant for the big regional sports stadia. But we also said that we're going to have small sports stadia in the districts so that you can train the sportsmen in the districts. And each of the regional sports stadia will have hostels, they'll have facilities for residents and all that. So that when we have trained the sportsmen in the districts, we will hold regional competitions at the regional sports stadia. There will be hostels where they can sleep, there will be canteens where they can eat, and then they'll compete. And then based on that, we'll take the best of them. And from every region, we'll bring the best of them and send them for competitions at the national center, so that then we can pick the national teams out of that. It is in our manifesto, and it is something that we intend to pursue. Now the regions are 16. There used to be 10, and it was just Brong-Ahafo, Volta, and there were about 4 or 5 regions that didn't have stadia. Now you have OT has come to join. There are other regions that don't have. So it means that we need to build additional stadia. But Volta is one of them. It's a priority.
Very well. Very well. I'm grateful. Viewers, I think we would have to draw curtains on today's edition of the Global Morning Show, the session with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and also Her Excellency Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. But before they go, perhaps let's take the final bite from them. Your Excellency, there is a new hub in Ho known as the Gulf City. It's actually a real estate. I wish you pay a visit there one day to enjoy the serene nature of that place as well. Let me have your final thoughts, sir.
That was the intention we had with the Ho Airport.
It's so close to the Ho Airport as well.
And so when we built the Ho Airport, we said that the land around the Ho Airport should be developed into a city. So that it's not just an airport. An airport must feed into something. And so let's have the new development of Ho or the Volta region going towards the airport. And so if a private initiative has started that was our intention. And so there's more land there. We should get the private sector to come and build gated estates, nice developed roads in the area, so that when the flights come in, you understand, people can have their residence there. You fly in, you drive to your residence, you stay there over the weekend, you do what you have to do and things. Because an airport must feed into something. And so our intention was that it's not just the whole airport, it should be the whole airport and airport city. And so if Gulf City has started, then I encourage more, entrepreneurs from the Volta region to come and take land around the airport area and develop, shopping malls and other places where people can come and have an enjoyment and be able to see the benefits that we have in the Volta region. Very
well. Thank you so much for coming to us this morning. We are grateful and wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much, Randy.
Very well. Professor, thank you so much as well. And do have a great day in Ho. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, GMS continues right here. Stay with us.